Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 2 of Layers. I'm here with Mr. Bryan Ramage, and we're going to talk about more tracks from Humanity Has Failed. And without further ado, let's just get back into the track list. We have Time Won't Heal. That's the one that's on my list here. What can you tell us about that one?
It's my favourite song to play at the moment.
Nice.
From our set. I think I just love the choirs in it are just epic. Cheers, Tom, for your contributions.
Thank you.
But Tommy, Seb, Sin, Lisa, and Donna, it just made the album a hell of a lot more epic than I ever imagined. And this one in particular, I always intended for it to be a bit ridiculous in terms of like its size, and if it was up to me, the choirs would be a hell of a lot louder in the final mix, but I was shot down.
As someone who's part of the choir, I feel that they come across well because I feel that it's an effect. Like, you know, the band should be at the front and then the choir should embellish it and push it higher and higher, and I feel that is what's happening in the mix, but that's my opinion. Please discuss in the comments if you don't agree. But your favorite song to play, why is that? Is that because it's just a good riff to play, or how does that work?
I think lyrically, it's some of my favourite lyrics to sing, and the fact that it's it's like head banging and
goes hard,
and fun. But the lyrics, I just really like the lyrics. That's why I sing them twice in the same song.
I actually noticed it after listening to it multiple times. Like, I was like, oh, he's doing the same thing twice.
I do what I call the death format. I don't know if you're familiar with a band called Death.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah. But for those of you who might not be, a legendary death metal band, obviously, so there you go.
One of my favourite albums that they done was an album called Symbolic. I learned a bunch of songs when I was very young from that album. And their formula, it starts, then it's kind of like, you know, a wee bit through composed until a certain point, then does something else, then goes back on itself again. And
right.
Like, you know, like starts again there, then finishes at the same point with maybe a little extra thing. So it's kind of like a repeat.
Yeah, but like it's an interesting repeat because you're not copy pasting. It's a repeat is not a copy paste. Those are two different things.
It's lots and lots of riffs, all one after the other, and then with maybe a thing in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So then we're going to head into the next song, which is Overexpansion. Now, obviously with a title like that, you would expect that you have a bit of an idea what it's about, but I'm still curious what the intent was and what inspired it.
Over-farming was one of the main ones.
Right.
The over-farming of the sea, when I refer to the fields of gold, you know, in the lyrics. Based on over-farming for stuff that, you know, we don't necessarily need nourishment wise, like for things like, you know, hamburgers. Where we don't necessarily need to have them, but the amount of land mass that's required to have burgers, you know, to have animals to graze, that could be used for so much more.
Yeah.
I also wanted to kind of rein the album in a little bit. We've just had an awful lot of epicness, and you know, I wanted to bring some acoustic guitar into the mix, which I hadn't done in previous albums as much.
Also, just the idea of balancing out the track list a little bit, I can imagine, because it is. I like long albums, so for me, this is completely my jam. But it's still very important to have a structure to it. Like, okay, it needs to have like ebb and flow and all that kind of stuff, right?
And in order for the epicness to be epic, it needs to be epic against something.
Right.
That's where it comes in dynamics. I wanted to make like a soundscape that was still bleak, chilled, an unsettling guitar.
There you go, unsettling guitar. Then we're going to the next song, which is, I think this might be my favorite title on the album, Storm of Endings. I don't know, it just sounds epic as fuck. But what is it about, though?
It's a weird one, where I was listening to an awful lot of Chris Cornell.
Okay.
As well, and how he likes to play on words, and how his most famous song, Black Hole Sun. How he wrote it in like, what, 15 minutes, I think, as the story goes.
Yeah.
And it was just the lyrics. I think he says like they don't make any sense. I guess they do make sense to people, you know, however they want to interpret things. You know, I wanted to use strange words to describe things.
Right.
And that's where me talking about like world leaders, you know, and us being stuck with the incompetent world leaders that we have, especially during the time of COVID, when I was writing these lyrics. And it's blind leading blind. Snakes are hungry in this heat, you know, global warming. Surrounded by others, seeking refuge in a web of lies. And leaders with too many faces pick our bones with their teeth. So it was more one of the more cheesier ones, shall we say, on the album for me. It was one that I think almost didn't make it.
Really?
But yeah, for me, I think that was one of the weaker ones. But I love the midsection, so it stayed.
We're gonna go to, obviously, the most calming, lovely, subtle songs on this album. You know, one you can really have a romantic night to. This one's Nothing to Fear. That was a gut punch the first time I heard it. What was the intent when you started writing that?
Heavy!
Balls!
Yeah, I've got like a certain amount of things that I can do vocally. And with this song, I wanted to challenge myself to do something a bit different. Doing my best Phil Anselmo sometimes on it.
Well, yeah, and I can hear that. I can definitely hear that, yeah.
I'm not much of a growler, screamer vocalist. I can do it, but it's not as well as most other metal singers.
It's funny that you say that, because I feel that it actually works really well. I feel that it's a really good palate cleanser at the halfway point.
Lyrically, this one, I don't think I need to explain this one. It's very self-explanatory.
For those of you who've seen the video, I mean, it was the first single we released to promote the record. If you have not, the link is in the description. Just check it out. It really kind of tells its own story in that regard, I think. Unbalanced, and yeah, I was wondering what prompted you to get that one going.
This was an intent for a soundscape that was brought about from the idea of a particular track that I was listening to from a Hans Zimmer album. It was the Dune sketchbook, because I had both the Dune albums on quite a lot during this.
Ridiculous albums, ridiculously great albums, so it makes sense. Yeah,
big Hans Zimmer fan, and I believe the track that kind of inspired, like gave me the inspiration to do this one. I See You in My Dreams.
Right.
Where there's a particular passage of it. It has these whispers, these voices, and another language going like stereo continuously, but they build up with a like a weird sample underneath that goes like underneath.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and that was like, man, like if that was to kick in, that would be heavy as. You know, so
it's like, oof.
So I was like, yeah, man, I'm sorry, Hans, I'm going to rip you off there.
You heard it here first, people. It's like Unbalanced is the Hans Zimmer rip-off track. So there you go.
Sorry. No, and I was very heavily inspired by that. And I was like, man, I want to create that soundscape, because it's like Hans Zimmer's sound on that album was so huge and yet dynamic. I wanted something really heavy, and I wanted that like heavy drums, you know, going on. So Hammy had to up his game a little bit for this one.
He went pretty hard. Yeah, absolutely.
Some fast kick drums in there, and yeah, I just wanted this one to be the most epic sounding.
I think you absolutely succeeded with that. I mean, that's definitely the case. This is one that I've seen a lot of people describe as the epic of the album, When All the Lights Go Out. And I'm just curious, was it your intent to make this an epic, or was that something that grew naturally? Like how did that happen?
This song has a history because I wrote it back in 2009.
Wow.
So, when I say wrote it, I made the music, which was initially 14 minutes long. I trimmed it back for this album. The meat of the song is still exactly the same, because the meat of the song is like 7.5 minutes, then the rest is like a coda. I had a big grandiose idea for the coda, but sadly it didn't come to be. I'd done a version of what I wanted to do. But, time and... I had this idea of it growing and growing, getting louder and louder and bigger and bigger. But I opted for a more saner option, I think.
To be fair, I mean, we are at the end of the day, we're doing this with a prog label surrounded by proggers. The idea of you maybe actually turning it into a 14 or 17 minute epic at a certain point, I don't think a lot of people would complain if you did. Let's put it that way.
No, but lyrically, I wrote the first verse back then. Like I was saying in an earlier episode, when I'm creating, sometimes what I'm creating isn't exactly what I'm wanting to create at that particular time.
Right.
So this one was shelved because it didn't fit with anything that I was trying to do at the time, or didn't work. But I always was very fond of the energy, and it's all about having, when you're making an album, it's all about making sure that you've got all the right energies.
Yeah. Like flow and energy. That's where it's at. That's the most fundamental part. Yeah.
And this album for me is profoundly dark, and that I always remembered this track as like, this one needs to go somewhere eventually. And for the previous 3 Ramage Inc. albums, I've wanted this track on it, but it's just been like, it's not going to work.
Like you couldn't get it right in the way you wanted it then, basically.
Yeah, what I done is I still kept the initial lyrics that I had because they fit very, very well, and I finished it off. And this track, it holds a bit of meaning to me, so, well, as they all do, but this one is a bit of history. I've always been very fond of it, and I do hope to play it live. I mean, lyrically it's all about, making sure, like choosing, the right, not knowing what direction to go, when you've got options, hoping that you choose make the right decisions before all your decisions are made for you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of episode 2 of us discussing Humanity Has Failed by Ramage Inc. If you haven't heard the album yet, check it out in the description. All the links are there to Spotify and Apple and whatever the hell you use to listen to music on. It's on there now. Or get the CD if you're really awesome, because really awesome people do that. Hint, hint. And I wish you all a very pleasant rest of your day, and we're going to see you again on the next episode when we discuss the rest of the tracks on Humanity Has Failed. Later.